Hello. Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. We are going to kick this off. My name is Cody Galloway, and I am the co-founder of Tula. We are so excited to be hosting this session today, so thank you so much for joining us. I do have some quick housekeeping and announcements from Denver Startup Week, so just bear with me for a moment. First, thank you to our title sponsor, Amazon, Capital One Cafe, Dell for Startups, and the Downtown Denver Partnership. This session is a part of the Founder Track, sponsored by Madison Taylor Marketing, one of 8 programming tracks aimed at supporting the entire entrepreneurial team. I also need to note, by attending this session, you're agreeing to follow our code of conduct as well as being photographed or videoed. Lastly, please be sure to share your experience at this session using hashtag DenStartupWeek, and we'll definitely re-share anything if you also tag Tula Balanced. With that, I'm going to ask our incredible panelists to please introduce yourself. Okay, first I would be remiss if I didn't also announce that it is one of our panelists' birthdays today. And it's kind of a big one. I'm not going to share how big because that's not very fun. It may or may not start with a 4 and end with a 0. So, happy birthday.
It's my birthday.
Yeah.
That only makes me feel older.
So if you guys would please share your name, what you do, and I'm going to ask you to share 3 words to describe what it's like being parents and entrepreneurs at the same time.
Well, I'm Adam Bornstein, and it is my 40th birthday today, so I'm happy and honored to be spending it here with you. Cody asked me if I really wanted to be here, and I said definitely, because few things are more enjoyable for me than talking about entrepreneurship and then also talking about parenthood. So it truly is something special for me to be here. I have 3 different businesses. I have Pen Name, which is a consulting company that focuses on content marketing and branding. I have Born Fitness, which is a fitness and nutrition company, and then I have 212, which is an events business. Which is, I like to joke, has been cryogenically frozen during COVID times, but will hopefully be coming back actually next year. So that will be nice for everyone involved on that business. And then 3 words to describe entrepreneurship and parenthood, I think, would be passion, relentlessness, and fulfilling. I think all 3 of those words perfectly encapture what it takes to both be a good entrepreneur and be a good parent.
I'm Megan Trask. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tula with our lovely moderator Cody here. And I guess my 3 words, I'm going to steal one of Adam's as well, would be passion, chaos, and also growth. So you definitely have to be passionate. You'll definitely experience moments of chaos, and you'll have to grow whether you think you need to or not.
Hi, I am Fa'al Ali. I am the founder of Easy Media, Ela Gallery, art gallery here in Denver, and Ela Prints. I would say that my 3 words for parenting are scary, fun, and pandemonium.
I agree with the pandemonium. Hey everyone, my name is Guadalupe Hurt. I am co-founder of Second Act Women. We are a pro-aging membership community for women 40 and 50 plus to gather and grow. My 3 words would be fulfilling, proud, and enthusiastic.
Tough acts to follow here. My name's Freddie Pyle. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alpine Media Technology. We build communication platforms for ski resorts, so a combination of mobile apps and digital signage, If any of you ski at Winter Park, we put digital signage even on chairlift bars. So when you pull the restraint bar down, there's real-time information there on digital displays. The 3 words I would use, I think, is more of a short phrase. So diligent time management. There's a lot to juggle between founder and parent. So.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We feel so lucky to have you guys here. And with that, I'm going to just dig right in. So Adam, I'm going to have you kick us off. Can you share an experience in which your perspective or strategy in business was directly impacted or shaped by being a parent?
Too many. I think the joy of parenthood is that it changes your perspective on everything, right? The way that you think about time, the way that you see problems, and the way that you see situations. So for me, it's applicable across all 3 businesses, but I think the one that is most applicable is in the fitness and nutrition business. So for people who deal with wellness, the problem is rarely knowing what will work to help people become fit. And that's a big misnomer for most people, right? It's not complicated for people to understand what it would take hypothetically to eat healthy, or that exercise is good for you. The difficulty is understanding how to make it work. And the moment that you become a parent, you start to see all the different ways that it becomes more difficult for you to become fit or healthy because of competing demands. And whether that's time for your own schedule, whether it's being overworked, whether it's having to give so much of yourself to your kids or your family that you don't have anything left over to give to yourself. I think taking on the lens of a parent allowed me to better understand what the problem we were really trying to solve for. And most people within fitness and wellness try to solve for the problem of what is the best way to eat and what is the best way to exercise. And by becoming a parent, it really allowed me to change the perspective of what is the best way to do those things, but in a less stressful and more practical way, and in a way that allows people to have slack in the system, because so much of wellness is built around this need for almost dogmatic perfection. And as parents, I hope all of you have learned that you can't have this burden of being perfect. There's a balance between what is good enough and what you can give to your family and what you can give to yourself. And understanding that and being a parent really changed the way that I understood how to help people, changed completely how I had to take care of myself. And in a very surprising way, it allowed the business to take off because we weren't necessarily directly serving parents, but it allowed us to more appropriately pinpoint the problem that people were having. So I think the beauty of becoming a parent, the beauty of having children, the beauty of trying to juggle all of the chaos, as everyone knows here, is that it allows you to more identify pain. And I think the best businesses, the ones that truly take off, and this is meant in an optimistic way, start from a position of pain, a deep personal pain that you have that is causing a problem. And if you can identify that pain, you shouldn't necessarily think of it in an egotistical way. You should think of it as a democratizing way that other people probably have this pain. And if you are identifying that pain and thinking from that lens, what is making something so difficult, you're more likely to find a solution that I think helps people out. So I think how parenthood makes things more challenging can actually be a competitive advantage because it allows you to better understand and better connect with the people that you're trying to help.
Awesome. Does anybody have any follow-up to that question? No. You just summed it all up right there for everybody.
There we go. I'm going to go home and eat my donut.
Awesome. Lupe, I'm gonna skip down to you. What would you say one advantage of being a parent and a founder is?
One. Now, if I'm talking to a room of parents, you all know that narrowing it down to one is going to be a hard task to do because there's so many benefits to it. But I would say that the biggest benefit is the fact that we're natural multitaskers. And I would say that there's 2 sides to that coin. Multitasking sometimes can be a good thing, but it can also sometimes be a bad thing, right? The idea that we can't necessarily focus on one thing per se. But there is this also reality to life that not everything, we can't always just slow down and focus on one thing because that's just life. And we need to sometimes navigate it and exist. And there's ebbs and flows that come with everyday life parenting that obviously come true also in entrepreneurship, right? Like this idea of, being able to juggle different tasks, be able to show up in different places, be able to delegate, be able to, swap one thing for another, make priorities. There's so much that kind of goes into the skill set that sometimes as a parent, you come in and you've got already an innate way of balancing your time and looking at ways and priorities in a different aspect because you've got this one little person that you're now taking care of. Well, your company is very similar to your child, right? It has its good moments and it has its tantrums, and you have to obviously equally be able to look at it and say, how am I going to balance my time to positively affect my business? And so I think the idea of being able to just take a step back and look at it and navigate and run with it and put out the fires as they come up is an important opportunity for entrepreneurship as well as being a parent.
Anybody want to follow that up? Okay, perfect. You have the mic. I'm looking at you. The next question. What would you like to see change in the startup space overall and then specifically for parents?
I think one of the things in the startup space that I'd like to see changed is tolerance, right? Or actually, I won't even say that. I'd say like child labor. Like we got to get used to sometimes bringing our kids with us. As somebody who owns and operates 3 businesses, 3 brick and mortars, my son a lot of time has to come with me. My very first startup was exactly that. It was a co-working space that was geared towards minority men and women who were entrepreneurs, who didn't have a place to bring their kids sometimes, right? You had to come with me. So this place that I created was friendly, and it was encouraged that you bring your son or daughter with you to, one, make sure you're not having to spend money on childcare during certain times, but also just create some flexibility. I see people bring their dogs to work, but sometimes it's frowned upon when you bring your kid because kids aren't dogs, right? So I think that would help, especially for people who are going it alone, right? Sometimes you have to be able to compartmentalize and say, hey, what is the priority here? And sometimes your business might take priority over your kid at that time, so they got to come with you, and they're not going to be able to have fun or eat snacks or do all the things that kids need to do and interrupt your day. So I think in public spaces and places where people are congregating in entrepreneurship, like it's okay if you got to bring your baby and the babies cry, or if your son just needs to get up and move around and wiggle a little bit. People have to really show some compassion, and I think that's one of the things that would help in the startup space, and that's why I created Urban Media, because I knew that somebody like myself needed that. I had nowhere to take my son certain times. When I was first becoming an entrepreneur, I didn't have much of a village. I didn't have much of a support system, so he came everywhere with me. And if you ask my friends now, you'll see me in my businesses and you'll see my son with me like 80% of the time. He has to come, and he helps me work now. He helps me do things at my jobs. He hands me lenses. He pops out stickers at the print shop. He helps hangs art at the art gallery, and he's learning a lot of skills. So, I think that's kind of where I would start.
That was great. I'll add something to this. I think what needs to change, and what's really important in the startup culture here, is that parents, and you shouldn't feel this way, and people shouldn't look you this way, that being a parent is a disadvantage as being a founder. So there's a big part of, and it's been around for a while, that hustle culture, right? And anyone here who is trying to start a business knows that it doesn't happen by accident. There's a tremendous amount of work and energy that goes into it. But it doesn't mean that you can't succeed and build a business and build an extremely successful one if you have kids. So I think changing the way that people look at having competing interests, or something that might even be more important than the business, is very important to support those founders, because I don't know anyone who is more capable than a parent. If you can raise a child, you can literally, excuse my language, do fucking anything. Right? And it's starting to change. So everyone has a different approach of how they want to start their business. Some people bootstrap, some people raise money. For a while, it was very, very difficult for people to raise money, especially if you were a parent, because people who were trying to give you money truly viewed your children as a barrier to success, and it shouldn't be that way. So you're seeing it change in the way that moms are being treated, also in the way that dads are being treated, and the way they're even allowed to spend time with children. two funds in particular, if you are interested in raising money, that are very supportive of this. One is 776. This is Alexis Ohanian's fund. Alexis was the co-founder of Reddit. He recently became a father a couple years ago and has made a very, very significant emphasis on trying to support parents who are trying to be founders. Another one is going to be Offline Ventures, started by Britt and Dave Morin. And they just raised another fund as well. So I think part of it is knowing that you shouldn't have to hide that. You should lean into it. And if you're trying to raise money or if you're trying to get support, make sure that you do have that support system that recognizes, one, that the balance that needs to exist, and there's no need for you to sacrifice what you do as a parent in order for your business to succeed, because there is a way to balance both of them. And there's no reason why you should think otherwise.
Pass me down the mic, right? Hey, on that note too, I think, and this is why Tula and organizations that are out there now that I wish I would have had when I had little kids, that this idea that being able to understand that you don't have to do it all. I think there is this understanding that as parents, I need to be there for my every kid's soccer game, but then I also need to go at every networking event, and I need to also be working on my website, and the list goes on. So this idea that it is okay to create an A-team around you, whether that's an organization that comes in and does your house cleaning. Let's get rid of all those chores that we don't necessarily like to do, even if we're not parents, right? And pawn it off on an organization that is going to employ someone else, but give you a little bit more flexibility to focus on what you really, what really lights you up, or what really you need to be doing to kind of move your company forward. Don't feel guilty. There is this idea that we fall into this parent guilt trap that, all of a sudden we're not good parents because we're not necessarily spending all our time with our kids. Well, if we can spend quality time with our kids versus all of our time with our kids, there's a difference. There's a difference to being present, and then there's also a difference to just going through the motions. And we all know the difference. So make sure to kind of create that support system, because I think a lot of us in entrepreneurship think we need to do it all, and you don't.
All right, Megan to all of you, Meg to me. What piece of advice would you give a fellow parent on starting a business as it pertains to navigating the startup process while also juggling the role of parent?
That's a lot. But I would say I actually have two pieces of advice kind of from my time as being a founder that I learned the hard way or by fire. And the first piece of advice I would say is there's no perfect time to do this, to make your start, to take the leap. I think you obviously have to do kind of the basic due diligence, right, of planning and strategy and having the passion, and that's all wonderful. But if you're trying to reconcile that against your family schedule or what kind of your goals are as a family or partnership, there's really no perfect time to do that. So at some point you have to just believe in yourself and take that leap and go for it. The second piece of advice, this is definitely one that I have to remind myself of very regularly, is to give yourself grace. It is so easy to compare yourself to other founders or compare what you're building to what other people are building, compare people's success and timelines and press and all of the things that can really lead to pretty defeating observations. So I think it's really important to give yourself that grace and remember that your story is your story and that your why is your why, and to just keep moving forward. And I would love to hear other people's advice as well.
I agree with you. Give yourself grace. Be nice to yourself, and definitely do like Bruce Lee said. Be water, my friend. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to shake and move. And I'm a Virgo, so I like things kind of syncopated. And sometimes when they don't go that way, things just fall apart, right? So I've had to learn to really just, like you said, give yourself grace and be able to fluctuate and move with the way things come, because in entrepreneurship, nothing is predictable. You can do all the planning you want. You can have this great plan and something's going to go awry. And if you haven't mentally prepared for that ahead of time, then it could really set you back and cost you some important time.
I would say be mindful of the fact that you are a person first before you were a parent. So you're a mom or you're a dad, and that there's only so many hours in a day, there's only so many things you can do, and burnout is real. especially among parents that are entrepreneurs. So be sure to block out time where you can ask someone else for help. It's a truth. Women specifically have a hard time asking for help. They think that we're supposed to be doing it all and doing it perfectly and showing up well dressed and everything in between. No, like that. Get rid of that idea and just make sure that you take care of yourself. So figure out what fills your cup, because if your cup is running on beyond empty, you're not going to do anyone else any good. You're not going to be the best parent. You're not going to be the best entrepreneur you can be. Don't compromise on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess simply I would say don't overthink it. Like Meg said, there is no perfect timing for it, but I think everybody who has kids probably came to that realization as well. There was no perfect time to have a kid. You plan it as much as you want, but it sort of happens, and everybody here has, I'm sure, done perfectly fine as parents and raising productive members of society. I think I would say if there's a passion there to start that company, to go after it and not overthink the fact that you have kids. I mean, I have a great partner to help me through it, but everything, I mean, you can ease your way into it. It's not like you got to drop everything, leave your kids behind and dive into this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think it's more than easy enough to sort of slide into and sort of build up the momentum when starting a company.
I'm going to have you keep that mic, Freddie. What resources have helped you set up healthy boundaries?
Prior to starting this company, I worked for a consulting firm.
Is it on? Is it green?
No, it died.
I'll pass this baby down.
Swap you out.
Yeah, so prior to starting this company, I worked for a management consulting firm, and we worked virtually. So I worked from home and traveled all the time. And so I learned actually well before kids to try and set up some barriers as to when I could how to actually leave work and leave it behind for the day, because it was literally right next door in the office. And I think setting those boundaries and saying, when the kids are home from school, at least right when they come home, I try and set aside some time to interact with them and hear how their day went, and then finish up some other things while they're off playing Fortnite or playing with friends or getting ready for sport practice for different sports and stuff, and then coming back, in the evening time and making sure that it's I guess mindful and being fully present during that time with them. But just, I mean, we have a virtual office. Everybody in our company has kids and works virtually, and I think they've all done similar things. As the CEO of the company, I fully expect that people are going to have very flexible schedules as well. It's not going to be 9 to 5. They're going to show up early. They're going to do stuff early at home or whenever they need to get it done. As Adam said, I mean, we're managing to raise children. We can easily manage our time and get the work done that we need to do. So I think setting a physical barrier and being able to actually step away from the work for a period of time is really important.
I would say, as far as the resources, my village, my crew, my friends, I had to make sure I was being forthright and honest where I was at mentally and emotionally as a parent, right? Sometimes I just don't have it. Sometimes I'm just not there. Sometimes I need a boundary. I recently have just got a great partner to help me. I'm a full-time single dad. I've had full custody of my son since he was 2 months old and had been raising him by myself. So I was inundated and overwhelmed for a lot of this and trying to make this happen. A lot of the businesses that I own are circumstantially because I was a single dad and had nowhere to take this kid, right? And I had to still make a living. So I have, over the years, my friends and my community have learned that, I need help. I need help sometimes, and those are the people who I've been able to reach out for, whether it's for equity investment, whether it's just for free time, whether it's, hey, I have to get this project done. I need you to make sure my son gets to baseball practice. So I would say invest in that. A lot of times my business counterparts, my colleagues, when it comes to business, or people I'm even doing deals with, or clients, don't understand, because they're like, that's not my problem. Like, you should have that figured out. So my number one resource has been my community, and has been my people and my loved ones. So investing in them and letting them know and being forthright with how I'm at, or where I'm at with it, has really helped me become successful.
I think I might just add a little bit to that and say that, it's definitely community and family and tribe and friends and all of those things, but also a bit of a mindset shift of really challenging yourself to kind of shift your focus and your thinking and feeling empowered as you ask for help, and like really taking control of prioritizing with purpose, because you have people that want to support you and want to be there for you, and looking at that as an advantage instead of burdening somebody else. I think we're always quick to kind of guilt ourselves about not doing it all. So there are plenty of people out there that that will help if you ask for it. And so I would just encourage people to kind of shift the mindset.
I'll add to that thought, because I think it's so important. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're a parent, oftentimes you can feel like you are not in control of the situation, right? There's just too many things that are going on, and the journey of both many times probably feels like you're losing more than you're winning, even when that's not reality. So a lot of this is about creating a mindset shift that allows you to, as people would say, the cliche is control the controllables, but how do you do that? A lot of people like to create to-do lists. I hate to-do lists. I've never had a to-do list that didn't get longer at the end of the day than it started, right? You like cross off 2 things and add 6, and it's like, shit, like I lost the day again. I like winning days and making it easy to understand when you win days. And I like winning days by focusing on what I can control as opposed to what I can't. So each day for me starts the same exact way, and it makes it very easy for me to win the day. I create a list that has 2 items on it, one for my family, one for my business. It is the one thing that I must do that day. It is not a laundry list of things, and it allows me at the very end of the day, if I haven't gone to sleep, I have to go ahead and fulfill that, because it means something, kind of deterred that progress. But more often than not, allows you to win that day, and allows you to feel back in control in situations that oftentimes this slow, gradual process, right? Raising kids is a race that never ends, and growing a business is kind of the same way, and unless you eventually, exit a company and then move on to something else. So I think that having that focus to know what you are trying to accomplish each and every day, and be able to get so narrow on what it is that you want to achieve. And it can just be making sure that you spend 15 minutes to read with your kid before they go to bed. It could be making sure that you're checking in with yourself. It could be even for your business. It could be giving yourself 30 minutes of personal time so that you don't lose your mind. Doing that is a tool that doesn't allow you to constantly get in this feeling of, am I moving forward? Because from a quantitative standpoint, you can just look back and look at the days that you've won, because you set the boundaries of the things that you control and what you can do to make sure that you are making progress, both as a parent and as an entrepreneur.
I know. All right. Fall, I'm going to come back to you. Curious, would you encourage your son to become an entrepreneur knowing what you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I have my son's back regardless, whatever he wants to do, So I tell him that go to college so you don't have to have 3 jobs, son. Like I'm not even, I didn't graduate from high school, so I'm a pure entrepreneur. So I tell him, if you don't want to have a print shop, a multimedia company, and an art gallery, go to college, but he's like, no, he doesn't know what he wants to do just yet. But if he did want to be an entrepreneur, I totally would do that, and I would save him so many problems. I would give him the cheat codes and all of the game to where he could just hop right in and hit the ground running. And if he didn't want to be an entrepreneur, I wouldn't be mad at that either, right? Because everything isn't for everybody. So if he said I wanted to go work at a cubicle every day, I would support that, but if I'm being honest, I do want him to be an entrepreneur. I want him to be a founder and a maker, and I'm just doing my best to foster that and lead by example.
Same question for you, Lupe.
So I have 2 kiddos, and my kiddos are now full-on grown. So if they decided to do entrepreneurship, that'd be cool. But my girl's like 25, and my boy's in college right now. And so there's some realities and some truth to entrepreneurship that it is definitely difficult. It is not for everybody. And so I think that I've started 4 companies. This is my 4th one that I'm in right now. And with each one I've learned that it takes a certain type of person to be able to handle the stresses and the decisions and the responsibilities that come with running your own company. So I would want to have, first and foremost, before I said, yeah, do it, I think I'd like to sit down and have that conversation with them about where their mind is and what they're really, really willing to do. Because I think it's easy to say sometimes, let's just start up, because honestly, that's what I did with my first company. And then it wasn't until I was in the thick of it that I was like, oh, wow, this is really wearing on me. So I feel like there had to be some due diligence up front. And I think to your comment too, I would totally share all the cheat sheets and all the lessons learned, because the idea being is we want to help them avoid the pitfalls. So I would say pursue your passion, whatever that leads you to be and wherever to do. And I totally agree with you, whether that's corporate America, whether that's entrepreneurship, it's your life. But I would say pursue wherever you're going to think you're going to make the most impact, because you've got one life to live it to the best that you can, and inspire your kiddos to find their North Star, because we all have one.
All right, Adam. Please share a time when something didn't go as planned or as expected, and how you handled it.
With parenting or entrepreneurship? Every day of my life. Yeah, it is every day. So what was it? About 4 or 5 years ago now, I was given the opportunity to go ahead and start another company, but completely different than what I'd done. All of my businesses have been bootstrapped from the ground up. I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years now after doing stuff on the corporate side. But there was a big catch to starting this company. So catch number one, it was kind of like one of those like dream opportunities where I got to be a co-founder in a business where my other co-founders were LeBron James and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know I'm just as well known as them. It's kind of awkward. But the other catch was that I would have to leave my family 3 days a week and fly to LA every single week to go ahead and run the business. After many talks with my wife, I decided to do this, and I did it for a couple years. And as cool as the opportunity was, it was probably the worst decision I've ever made, because I don't get that time back. When the company was launched, I've 2 boys. My second was born. I stayed home for 3 months and didn't travel at all, and then I went back on the road. And with my firstborn, I was there for everything. I didn't miss a doctor's appointment. I didn't do it. And you don't need to be there for everything. Like Lupe said, you can't do everything. But I missed too much, right? The hardest part about being an entrepreneur, when you get that bug, when you realize this, is that sometimes you kind of lose sight of what's enough, right? We become insatiable. The goalposts move. You want to do more. You want to achieve more. You want to build more. You want to scale more. And I thought I could do it all, and I couldn't. And I don't get that time back. It was hell on my marriage. It was very difficult on my children. I'll never forget. And the point that caused it to change is at the end of the school year for my son, you get like all the stuff that when he was in preschool that he gets to take home. And he had all these pictures that he just drew of like him saying he missed his dad. And I just felt like a piece of shit, And here I thought that I'm providing for my family and doing this cool thing. And there's obviously some ego in there, right? You get to go build this really cool company and do it with these big people and hang out with these big investors. But it was a net loss. And I told the company then, after I saw that I was going to stop traveling and I was going to do it. And the funny thing is that, probably about 6 months after that, COVID happens, right? And you see that like none of the travel was necessary. You could have done all of this. And the thing that really allowed me to pivot and react to that was that I started to understand better ways, I really started to think about what it was that I wanted to accomplish and put quantifiable terms on there so I would know what enough was. I was talking to Freddie earlier about this, that, he was saying, hey, you've got an agency. That's a hard business to scale. It's a really hard business to scale. And I've decided that I don't want to scale it. Because I could go ahead and create an arbitrary number of, we want to do 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, and maybe that's for some people. But I decided what I wanted to do is I want to be able to go deeper with the clients, have fewer clients, pay my employees really well, make a good living, be able to provide for my family, and call it a day doing stuff that I freaking love. I showed up today, and Cody asked me because I have to travel tonight, and it's my birthday. And she's like, doing something fun? I'm like, no, I'm going for work. She's like, is it fun? And I'm like, yeah, now because I try and make sure all of my work is fun rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it. So I think the hard part is there's so many lessons in parenting and entrepreneurship, and they're not always going to work out the way that you want. Even the ones that look like a massive win. Most people look at that from the outside in. The company was acquired a couple years ago, and you get to name drop who you got to work with, and you sold this company. But I'm very forthright that I view the whole experience as a net loss. It's not that I didn't gain things from it, but I made the wrong decision because I didn't put up the boundaries to protect the most important thing, which is my family. Right? I love work. We have a financial planner, and he's like, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, when I'm dead. I just love working, but I don't love working more than I love my family. And I think I needed to have that difficult experience, that learning experience, to remind me of that. And I just try and warn people of that in the chase to build something that you love, in the chase to do something that can truly impact others, help others, and change the world, just make sure that you don't disrupt your own world too much in the chase to help others.
I'd like to follow that up with, I agree totally. You have to know when to pump the brakes. I'll work all night. I'll work all day. I love parenting just as much as I love creating these businesses and seeing them flourish, the same way I love seeing my son. So I had to learn, flourish. So I had to learn when to hit the brakes on all this. So like you said, taking the kids to sports, right? So those are my brakes. My son is now in sports 6 days a week. So that's when I hit the brakes. That's my time to turn everything off. And some days I can't make it. Some days I have to be at work, but it's been a goal of mine to make sure that when I'm there, I'm present. I'm there for baseball. I'm there for basketball. I'm there in full support, and that has become my little daily getaways from work. I get to shut everything off. I don't think about it, and I'm just focused on home runs and not missing balls on third base.
So my story, very similar. So I have had the entrepreneurial bug, like I was mentioning earlier, 4 companies in. And so pretty much since I was 23, I've been running a business on my own. And I've been married that whole time. I'm going on 28 years in October. And so what I realized along the way, though, was that I got so into my companies. I wanted to do the world and change the world that, to your comment, I forgot my own small world. And I put our family in financial distress without me even knowing, because I wasn't necessarily bringing in the income. And what I realized was that I hadn't harbored a communication opportunity with my husband for him to feel comfortable enough to tell me, hey, babe, we're not making bills, we're taking out loans on our home, what's going on, we need to reevaluate and really work together. So for a long period of time, because of my entrepreneurship just desire, I really was in entrepreneurial mode. I want to create the world, change the world, and I affected our marriage in a negative way. And I really kind of, like I said, put our family in financial distress. So I would say, my tip would be is make sure that you check in with your partner, with your other half, if you are in a relationship. Make sure that they're on board with what you're doing, that what you are doing is not necessarily negatively affecting, because what ended up happening was my husband saw the light in my eyes and he didn't want to burst my bubble. And so he just took it on and burdened himself with that, bailing us out. And so don't do that. I didn't realize that until we almost came on divorce, honestly. And so that all came out and we started to kind of take steps to rectify that. But don't get to that point. In essence, keep an open line of communication with your partner or with your family if you're a single parent. But at the end of the idea, know that you need to be on the same team in order to make not just your company work, but also make your relationship work as well too.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to ask you guys one final question, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And I'm going to borrow this one from the How I Built This podcast. Do you attribute your success to luck or hard work? Who wants to start?
I'll go first. There's luck in every situation, good and bad, okay? But I don't think people succeed without hard work. I don't think long-term sustainable success occurs without hard work. So you might get started by a little luck. You might be accelerated by a little luck. You might find your ending or demise or bump in the road by some bad luck. But I think the key to success is sustainable, consistent habits that allow you to do things and build and create something that is what you dream of building. And you can't do that without hard work. So I think that I don't believe in black and white thinking, but I do believe that you can't have success without hard work, but you can have it without luck.
I kind of agree along those lines, but I would say certainly in an early stage, it's so much hard work because that's just the reality. Those are your resources, are your work ethic and what you're willing to put into the business. I'm super type A. I like a list. I like a roadmap. So I don't really plan for like where that luck will happen. That's not how my brain works. But I think the really hard work can put you in a better position to kind of fall into that luck or put yourself in front of the right people or the right setting that propels you forward. But I still think at the end of the day, it's all rooted in hard work. Oh, you have one. Do you want 2 mics?
Oh, this one died again. So now I got 2 mics. I would say that, at least for me personally, a lot of my success has been attributed to 3 things. One part, manifestation, putting it out there, speaking it into existence. Because and the other part would be survival mode. I was in survival mode for a while when I became a single parent, a solo parent. I didn't know what to do, so I had to make something happen. Nobody was going to hire non-college educated single parents, so I had to make something happen. And then I would say the last part would be hard work for sure. I would definitely I work my ass off, and my plan is to outwork everybody, so I can make sure that my son and my businesses are both flourishing.
So I would say, I guess I'm going to kind of throw a little monkey wrench into the conversation. I've got an issue with the term hard work, because to my comment earlier about burnout and this idea that we need to work super hard in order to achieve is not true. I feel that it is a matter of being intentional. It is creating a company that solves a real problem, and your solution is the best solution to ease that problem. So if you come at it from this idea that you are bringing something into existence that's going to bring purpose, it's going to change lives, it's going to create impact, and add some dollars to your pocket, then it's a win-win. So I would say there is a balance between, being intentional with your ideas, but it does take work and it does take effort. It's just a matter of understanding the type of lift that it requires and making sure you don't lose yourself in that lift is important.
Not much to add other than, I agree the work is lasting and the luck is sort of fleeting. The luck can certainly accelerate stuff, but I would rely more so on work as opposed to luck.
My kids are still peeing on the floor, so.
I think nothing really changes. I think you change. I think that you become more adaptable. My son would pee on the floor, and now it's like managing what he's watching on YouTube. It never changes. It just kind of shifts, right? So you have to just, like I said, stay fluid and now you're not cleaning up fluid. Now you're watching him what he's watching on YouTube. So I think that it's just shifting gears as things come along, and just to kind of stay abreast of what's happening, because in this digital age, it's not like we grew up. So kids are sneaky in new ways, right? So that's for raising a 10-year-old boy, that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm like, who is he talking to? What is he watching? Where are these influences coming from? And who the hell is this person that's in my house, right? Because they change so fast. So definitely, I go to work and I come back from the art gallery, and then I have to go edit a video, and I come back and he's completely different. He's had a new download. He's learned something new, and I'm like, wait, what the hell happened, right? So I think that's just one of the things that I have learned for sure.
So I've got my 17-year-old still at home, and he's off and on between moving into college. So I would say it's collaboration. I talk through a lot of my concepts with my son, because we are creating, our company is all about changing gendered ageism and the idea of valuing every person regardless of age, for what they bring to the table. So I would say it's an opportunity to have them see what I'm trying to build and ask for their perspective, and then take that into consideration as a new generation, and being able to then learn from him as well too, to be able to say, hey, how do I perhaps pivot or take that into consideration for my next endeavor. It's been beautiful, because they've grown up with me being in that space for so long that they now know that it's part of my DNA, and they're always willing to just chime in and share their opinion.
Yes, my name's Brady. I've got a 6-4 and a 2-year-old. You talked about the balance between the quantity and quality that you spend with your kids, and you only have so much time, energy, and exhaustion kind of falls into that on both sides of it. One thing that I've heard from many people, but especially in the entrepreneurial world, they grow so fast, and the common regret of wishing I was there more so when they were young. On the outside of just a side gig, but actual entrepreneurial journey, can you speak to maybe the balance between saying I can quit my jobby job right now while they're young, push off that entrepreneurial spirit that's in the blood, say, but then sort of set that on the back burner while trying to be more present while they're young, but still having that drive, that business you're building in addition to the family and the job, how that maybe balance kind of play into how to be present with your kids, have that time for yourself, while knowing that deep inside of you, you have to build that, just whatever entrepreneurial direction that you're moving in. Maybe speak to that with the littles who you are as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, before I started my company, I think I might have been working more hours in a week, working for somebody else. I think owning the company and kind of driving the direction of it, and setting, I guess, some priorities for everybody. I'm more in control of it, and I find that I get to spend a lot more time with family and kids with a company that I've started, as opposed to having to meet the demands of what an employer or somebody else is asking. So I would say it's if the expectation is that if I go and work my jobby job for a while, you may find that you're going to miss out on as much or potentially more of that time with family. So I don't know what others' experience was.
You all have little ones down there, so.
How do you feel right now, not being able to pursue as much of the entrepreneurial stuff that you feel is inside you? Right.
Exhaustion at the time that I'm with him, I'm short with him, not
Yeah, it's this is the parent's dilemma, right? This is probably what everyone here deals with in some way, shape, or form. I can't tell you what's going to be right for you, right? I can tell you what was right for me is that when I felt that I was missing out or when I was short, I had to make adjustments because, the other people in my life, the most important people in my life, shouldn't suffer. And at the same time, you shouldn't suffer, right? Because there's almost this like self-inflicted guilt and pain that you're going to internalize that's going to harm you across the board. And it doesn't mean that you don't push forward with it. This is what I said before. It's about setting realistic expectations for what you want to achieve and in a timeline and do it in a way that allows you to succeed at everything, right? We all want to succeed or grow yesterday. If you have another job that's paying the main bills, and if you have this time with the family, you might want to move 1,000 miles per hour, and you either have to ask yourself, what can I outsource that gives me more energy to do everything, right? Not doing everything, or how can I slow the pace so that the end destination is still the same, but maybe it's not as quick, but by not being as quick, I still get to have those moments because you won't get them back. Everyone says the same thing for a reason. Your kids are young once, and I'm sure all the parents here with older kids, they'll tell you they grow up so quickly, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and sometimes I act like I'm 2, so I feel like we're in the same boat over here. But I can't believe my boy turns 7 next month. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone, and I don't want it to disappear. And I already lost 2 years with my youngest, so I've changed. For me, it wasn't it was a combination of outsourcing more so that I would have more time and I wouldn't be so burnt out and not feeling I need to do everything, not feeling like I need to figure it all out. That's the other thing. Every entrepreneur thinks that like if it's your company that you have to have all of the answers. You don't. You won't. You'll have weaknesses. You won't know certain things. Ask for help. Ask for help. Ask for help. Take help so that you can do these things, because otherwise you're just going to beat yourself into the ground and you're going to wake up one day being like, wow, I could have just admitted I was struggling. I could have admitted this was hard. I could have asked some other people. The greatest growth I ever had is when I went to other people who were doing things that I want to do, and it wasn't from a comparison standpoint. I just asked them how they figured it all out, and I picked and chose from them what would work for me. Like, don't be so stubborn that you think you have to do it all, or don't be so stubborn that you have to do it all tomorrow. And then you'll still end up winning in the end, and that's all that matters, right? It's about winning and losing. It's not about how quickly it happens or if it has to be all because of you. Please add us. This is a community of entrepreneurs. Please add away.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And that's where I was going to go. So you said it. You said be present. Don't look at it as a quantity. It's not quantity. It's not sometimes how much time, because we all spend time with people sometimes, and you're thinking about other things. You're checking your phone. You're thinking about what I'm going to do next. Think about quality. Like, am I, to your comment, when I go on this walk, I'm not going to check my phone. I'm not going to think about my project. I'm not going to speed up my walk because I need to get back to my, 3:30 call. Think about really being present and engaging with your kiddos when you have the moments that you do. And you'll find that sometimes those are the most precious moments that you spend. And it's not about, did I spend 10 hours today with them? But rather the 3 hours or 5 hours that I spent with them, we're grounded, we're rooted in really connection building and getting to know and having them know that you're there for them. Those are the experiences that they'll remember, not like, hey, Dad, you only spent 5 hours with me yesterday. So just something to it's just context.
Can you speak to some of the financial challenges you guys faced as, family and entrepreneurs? My wife and I are both consultants, so we always have to have a side hustle going, and we're always hustling for that. And I'm in tech and she's in brand development and product development, so we were this perfect team to work together. But now we had 2 consultants, self-employed, and 2 entrepreneurs, 2 spouses in the same home, and the financial puzzle became really difficult difficult and really stressful. Some of you, it sounds like, may have had more resources from other companies or other, we had nothing other than a little bit of savings to fund it. So can you speak to some of those challenges financially and how you overcame them?
Well, financially, I'm like you. I put my own money up for my businesses. I didn't seed. I didn't fund. I started from nothing and then saved up and then put my own money up. So the pressure was on me. But I think that just being consistent and just seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and as adults we have our finances pretty much kind of figured out. We know what we need, we know how we spend, we know what we need to save, but entrepreneurship is it's a gamble. You can't be afraid to put your own money up. You can't be afraid to, and I think when it comes to kids, like when I started my business, I wasn't thinking about my son if he's going to Yale. I don't want to save this $2,000. We're going to get that money back. We're going to get that because I have a plan. So I'm not necessarily starting off with this young child and being like, I'm going to start saving for him to go to Yale right now. Who knows if he wants to go or not? I don't know. But I know that I think fear-based things like that, and saying I have to have these finances figured out all the way through the entirety until my exit strategy for this thing is putting a lot of pressure on yourself. And I can't speak to having a partner in the house, so maybe that's better for somebody else who is married. So I'll pass down that way.
Yeah, this is interesting. So I spent my whole career always being able to support myself and my girls, and then took this giant leap without the ability to do that. And that was like I don't know, I probably took months to get comfortable with that, but I'm very grateful for my partner who is here, who is open to supporting, the dream and the idea, and just kind of communicating and getting comfortable with communicating in a really uncomfortable topic. Like, nobody likes talking about finances, but the reality is if you don't communicate, you find yourself in a spot that you maybe can't recover from as quickly. So kind of being forced to be uncomfortable and to be accepting of support that wouldn't have been in my wheelhouse before was huge, and making sacrifices, but making those decisions together. So it didn't feel like the sacrifice was because of one person's change or what they were doing, but that it was a decision together that, could become a new adventure, and framing it in that way has been helpful for us.
I feel you, because I was an idiot. I quit my job to start a company, and my wife was like, I'm going to quit my job too, and let's do it together. Not the best plan when you both decided to be making no money on day one, and we bootstrapped everything together. And for us, it was creating a realistic timeline for when we needed to figure our shit out. For me, it was like, wife was like, 12 months. You either like have this figured out, or we're going back and getting jobs, right? So, and that's not to say that you can't continue. Right today, all the tools and technology are here for people to do things, but you don't want to create a situation where the stress becomes overwhelming, that you can't focus and you can't do your best work. It's just a reality, right? When pressure becomes too great for anyone, it's too great for anyone. What was very helpful for me, and it took me about 6 months to figure this out, and it's more of a framework to think about. It's a framework known as inversion. So inversion is about starting at the end. So if finances are an issue, you should start at the end of how much money you need to make. And then less how are we going to make this, but from a business model, what is a sustainable way that will allow us to create a strategic methodology that will allow us to make the amount of money that we need to get by and not be stressing the freak out. So with us, when I started Born Fitness as my first company. And there was a lot of different ways that we could think about going ahead and training people in a virtual space, whether it was a yearly plan, monthly, subscription, how much we would charge people. And I went down to the this is what my monthly nut is. This is what I need to survive. And I'm going to build my business model around that to have clarity so I can understand how I'm going to back in that number. Because if you start at the end and then you anticipate all the different ways that you're going to fail, you actually can find out flaws in your own entrepreneurial business model, because you can see where it is unrealistic. At one point, it's like, I'm going to be charging people like $500 a month. And it's like, well, it's my audience going to have $500 a month, and I need them to stay with me for 4 months on average, and we need to have like 30 clients in order to go ahead and do this, right? You start running all the numbers, and you realize that there's a flaw in your business plan in order to support the lifestyle that you want. So I do believe, and there's plenty that's been written about inversion, but inversion is starting at the end and identifying all the different ways that you would potentially fail, and it will allow you to build a better business model. Because like everyone said, you need to be on the same page with your couple, or with your significant other. You need to understand what the pitfalls are. You can't be scared, right? Because there's fear that's going to be in all of these things, but you can in some ways model out what you need to do so you can realistically build a model that you will back into. And then you just hope that you can do it, right? Then it just becomes a game of execution.
And that is our time. I'm so sorry if we didn't get to you. I did put up my contact information. If you have questions you want directed at a specific panelist, feel free to send my way, and I'll make sure to funnel those to the panelist who you're directing your question to. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this session. And in honor of Adam's birthday, I did pick up some donuts. I don't know how many are left, but for being the health guy that he is, he loves a good donut. So feel free to see if there's any left in there, and thank you so much for coming.